Instantly, Alice was met with the greenest grass and bluest sky she could imagine. White, fluffy clouds dotted the baby blue sky as if the sky was a face and the clouds its freckles. Alice looked around at the plants that surrounded her. Rows upon rows of beautiful flowers and whimsical trees covered every inch of ground to the left and right of her. In front of Alice lay a neatly constructed hedge maze, and even further beyond that stood a magnificent castle with hearts constructed into the building's towers. A fairly large, solid marble heart was positioned in the center of the castle, and in the center also sat a large red stained glass window. It had a peculiar design that Alice could just barely make out from where she stood. It looked to be a girl with flowing golden hair sitting atop her head. Alice stared at the beautiful castle and imagined just who could own such a marvelous home. At the same time, she wondered what it must be like, being a royal, and finally she envisioned herself upon the heart-shaped throne. Suddenly, as if reading the girl's thoughts, the Hatter put his hand on Alice's shoulder and spoke.
"It is yours, my dear."
All of it?
Alice asked excitedly.
"Yes, my dear. After all, you are the Queen of Wonderland. Come along, your Majesty. Your kingdom awaits."
Said the Hatter while flashing another grin and bowing at the waist. Alice smiled back at him before following the Hatter through the maze of bushes.
Hatter, what is through here? Can't I just walk up to the castle?
Well, dear, you see, we thought it best to construct the maze as to block out entry to the castle, except to those that are allowed entry. You see, while a land of wonderment, Wonderland is a land of dreams, which means that nightmares are also roaming deeper into the depths of this place. We built the maze so that anything wishing to ruin our pristine land would not be able to enter the castle. If you'll look closely, there are 4 other entry points to this maze, each one guarded day and night. These entry points lead to the other 4 areas of Wonderland. The gate we just passed through is the 5th entry point, and is only accessible by secret password. To each of the other areas, the residents take care of their own. They take care of their business, and are absolutely not permitted to enter the royal palace for any reason. They are undesirable, shall we say? They would simply get in the way of our plans. And we can't have that. Therefore, they must be kept outside the castle walls.
Plans? What plans?
Why, our plans for you, of course, Alice. You're going to love them, Alice. I promise.
How do we get through the maze, Hatter?
Why, it's simple, Alice. Just imagine it.
Whatever do you mean?
Close your eyes and imagine that these bushes are revealing a path straight through to the castle, and it will happen. Trust me, it's true.
Alice closed her eyes and envisioned the maze walls lifting to reveal a path, and when she opened her eyes again, it had indeed done just that.
But how?
Questioned the small girl, her silly-hatted, long-limbed friend, then laid his hand upon her shoulder.
How? Well, it is simple, Alice.
He began, offering the child a warm smile.
You see, Alice, whatever you can imagine here, it becomes reality. After all, it is your kingdom.
Said the Hatter with a smirk that was a mix between delight and deviance. Alice didn't notice, as she was too enthralled in the beautiful sights that lay before her young eyes. Miles and miles of rose-covered hedge walls stretched in front of her, all shifting as the two walked, allowing them to pass straight through After 5 minutes of walking, the pair had reached the end.
Boy, that was an awfully long walk.
Said Alice as she looked behind her to try and estimate the length of their walk. But just as she did, she saw the hedges once again shift. Soon the maze was just that, a maze once more. Alice had remembered what the Hatter had told her, and immediately shut her eyes and imagined as hard as she could for the hedge walls to once again open up to her. However, when she opened her eyes this time, she saw only a mountain of green, almost as if the wall had now grown taller.
No, of course it didn't grow, but then did I shrink? Did I grow?
Many questions fluttered through Alice's head, each one only serving as a catalyst into another series of questions. Perhaps sensing the girl's slight doubt, the Hatter quickly turned her attention toward the exceptional palace that stand just behind her.
This,
He said, gesturing to the gargantuan castle of marble and colored glass.
is your kingdom, Alice.
All for me?
Questioned Alice, eyes suddenly filling with childish wonder and curiosity. The Hatter smirked, almost triumphantly, knowing that he once again had the small girl's undivided attention. Just as he planned. Chapter 5. Alice, the Queen? Alice and the Hatter strolled into the magnificent castle, Alice oohing and awing at every little sight that her eyes greeted her with. She looked to the right, where a magnificent fountain stood, gushing what looked to be crystal clear water, so clear in fact that it seemed almost glowing. She then looked to her left, where two large red doors stood, with two elaborately decorated golden-plated handles.
Hatter, what is in there?
She asked, pointing to the red doors.
That, my dear, is the dining hall where we will prepare you a grand feast to celebrate your coronation.
Replied the Hatter.
A feast? What will we be having?
Inquired Alice, her curiosity being piqued by everything new in the castle.
Why, anything you like, of course.
Exclaimed the Hatter, throwing his hands into the air as if he had just performed some amazing magic trick.
Our chefs can cook practically anything your little heart could desire. But for now, at least, allow me to show you to your throne room,
He said. Alice nearly burst with excitement as those words left the Hatter's lips. She began to let her mind wander, not particularly focusing on anything, until the Hatter's voice broke her unfocused daze.
Here we are, your throne room, Queen Alice.
He said to her as he bowed at the waist. Ahead lay an immaculate jeweled chair, though she could hardly call it a chair, as it was enormous, far larger than any seat she had ever laid eyes upon.
Perhaps this is why it is called a throne, and not just a chair.
The throne was heart-shaped, with an enormous ruby as red as blood placed at the top, inside a makeshift crown adorned with hearts. Suddenly, Alice had a thought, looking at the hearts in the crown, and the hearts in the stained glass, and the hearts in the castle, and the shape of the throne.
This all seems familiar. So familiar.
Just then, as if once again sensing the girl's slight recognition of familiarity, the Hatter quite abruptly cut the girl's thoughts as he continued showing her about the large castle.
Come, Alice, we mustn't be late.
Cheered the Hatter as he checked his small watch that hung from his waistcoat pocket.
Late?
Questioned Alice.
Late for what, exactly?
Why, the party, of course. To welcome you back home.
Just then, Alice felt a familiar feeling come over her, as inky darkness filled her vision. She felt herself drifting, but she could vaguely hear the Hatter's voice still echoing through her head. It was only one phrase that she audibly chose to focus on, though.
To welcome you. Back home.
Back home? Where flowers bloom and creatures roam? Certainly not. Mother and father are not creatures. They are proper and well-managed human beings.
It was then that Alice heard a booming baritone of a voice call to her from within the darkness.
Soon, soon, soon you shall see. The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. The tree that's brought insanity, the tree of all humanity. From that tree you entered here, where people adore and cherish you dear. But beware, beware, hear and take warning. Not all is as it seems in this land of glory. Look, look, and you will see. Beware the Hatter and the wretched tree. They are glad you have returned again, for only now may their fun begin.
The feeling of spinning rushed over Alice, though due to the darkness she couldn't tell if she was really moving at all.
Alice!
Boomed the Hatter's voice, though by now it had changed into a new voice.
Alice?
Screamed the other voice. Alice slowly opened her eyes and searched for the source of the recognized voice, and soon realized that she was laying down. But not in her own room. In fact, she wasn't even in her home.
Papa?
Came the small girl's sleep-dusted words.
Alice! Oh, thank heavens you're awake.
Cried her father as tears of relief made their presence known on his cheeks.
Where are we, Papa?
Asked Alice, her eyes and brain scanning everything in the room, trying to ascertain where they were. She saw 4 jars to her left, all neatly organized and filled with various things. One held cotton balls, while another held popsicle sticks. The third held band-aids, and the fourth held small, glittering hearts.
We are at the hospital, sweetie. Your mother and I went to wake you up this morning, but you wouldn't. We even called over a doctor, but nothing would wake you up. That's why we're here, Alice. Are you okay, darling?
Asked David, his eyes showing a concern that only a father could know. Alice, however, was transfixed on the 4th jar on the counter. Her father continued to ask his daughter if she was all right, but Alice wouldn't answer him.
Alice, darling, are you hurt? Do you remember anything? Did you...
Daddy, what are those?
Asked Alice, pointing to the jar to her left.
What, dear?
That 4th jar, over there. It has tiny hearts in it. Do you see them, Papa?
David shifted his gaze from his daughter to look to where she was pointing, only to find nothing. He looked back to his daughter, who still held her arm out, pointing to a patch of air which held nothing.
Alice? There is no 4th jar.
Don't be silly, Father. It's right there.
David once again looked, and once more there was nothing. He began to worry, and then, as he moved his eyes back to Alice, he found that she was no longer looking away from him, nor was she pointing. Alice had rested her arms back at her side on the bed, and now locked her gaze with her father's.
Father?
Yes, dear?
Replied David, in a voice that very clearly expressed his feelings of fear.
Have you been to Wonderland?
David froze, as if those words were a deadly animal eyeing him hungrily. Fear began to course through David's veins as everything he had tried so hard to forget came crashing back. Darkness. voice. Utter and complete darkness. All-consuming and all-encompassing. That is what surrounded David in that moment. This, however, was not unfamiliar to him, and right on cue, as sure as the mortality of all our mortal souls, came a voice from deep within the dark.
No, this is not real. None of it can be real.
A chill wrapped itself around David as he felt something with the faint texture of fur brush against his right ear.
Did you really think that you could run from us forever, David?
Coming soon, Madness in Wonderland, Chapter 6. It runs in the blood.
Let the story begin, kiddies.